Have you ever found yourself at the end of a long, exhausting day, looking back only to realize that you were busy, but not productive? You answered every email, attended every meeting, and solved every urgent problem that landed on your desk. You were a firefighter, rushing from one blaze to another, but the landscape of your life remains unchanged. You are treading water, putting forth immense effort just to stay in the same place. This is the quiet trap of reactive living. It's a state where the world sets your agenda. Other people's priorities become your to-do list. You become a master of the short-term fix, yet a novice in the art of long-term building. And so, you live a life of endless motion, but no meaningful advancement. You are a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the whims of every wave and gust of wind. But there is another way to live. It is the way of the architect, the grandmaster, the strategist. It is a life built on a foundation of deep, intentional thought. Strategic thinking is the ability to rise above the smoke of the immediate fires and see the entire city grid. It doesn't just ask, how do I solve this problem? It asks the more profound questions: why does this problem keep occurring? What system can I build to prevent it entirely? And most importantly, where am I truly going, and is this action taking me there? This is not a special talent reserved for generals and CEOs. It is a skill, a mental muscle that can be trained. It is the essence of the Stoic philosophy, a timeless operating system for the mind that teaches us to design a life of purpose from the inside out. We all yearn for a life of meaning, a life where our health, our work, our relationships, and our legacy are not accidental outcomes, but deliberate creations. In this journey together, we will explore 13 foundational strategic ecosystems. These are not isolated tactics, they are interconnected gears in a powerful engine designed to shift you from a reactive existence to a life of intentional design. We will move from putting out fires to building a fireproof life. If you are ready to break free from the exhausting loop of short-term survival, if you are ready to pick up the compass and the blueprint, then your real work begins now. 1. Personal strategic analysis, the unflinching look in the mirror. Before an architect can design a skyscraper, they must first understand the ground upon which it will be built. They must know its composition, its strengths, and its hidden fault lines. To build high, you must first dig deep. The same is true for the architecture of a life. All strategy, all meaningful change, begins not with looking out at the world, but with an unflinching look in the mirror. You cannot chart a course to a new destination without first knowing your precise location on the map. This requires a radical honesty that most people spend their lives avoiding. We prefer the comfort of blaming external factors, our job, our boss, the economy, our past, to the difficult work of self-examination. But the Stoics knew that this was a fool's errand. The philosopher Epictetus, a man who intimately understood the difference between external constraints and internal freedom, provided the cornerstone of this mindset. This is the essence of philosophy, that a man should live in such a way that his happiness depends as little as possible on external things. This is not a call for asceticism, it is a strategic directive. To build a life of resilience, you must first analyze the internal mechanics of your own mind, your habits, and your character. You must understand your own operating system before you can hope to upgrade it. This is where the corporate tool of a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, becomes a profound instrument for personal clarity. But we must go deeper than a superficial list. Your strengths are not just the things you are good at, they are the repeatable patterns behind your successes. What underlying quality allowed you to achieve those wins? Was it consistent discipline? Was it the ability to hyperfocus? Was it your talent for connecting with people? Identify the model, not just the victory. Conversely, your weaknesses are not your failures, they are the recurring cycles of thought and behavior that lead to those failures. Do you consistently procrastinate on important but non-urgent tasks? Do you retreat from difficult conversations? Do you abandon projects the moment they lose their novelty? Recognizing the pattern is the first step to breaking the chain. Consider the monumental task faced by Lou Gerstner when he took the helm of IBM in 1993. The company, a titan of the 20th century, was on the verge of collapse. The prevailing wisdom and the company's own plan was to break it apart into smaller, more agile units. Gerstner, however, did not begin by taking action. He began with a brutal, clear-eyed analysis. He spent his first 90 days not launching grand initiatives, but listening, learning, and redrawing the company's SWOT map. He saw the threats clearly, dwindling cash reserves and a fractured, warring internal culture. But he also saw the unshakable strengths, a fiercely loyal customer base and a globally respected brand. Based on that analysis, he made a daring strategic pivot. He chose to keep IBM whole, leveraging its unified brand and customer relationships to offer integrated solutions, a strategy that saved the big blue elephant from extinction. His victory was not born of flashy innovation, but of relentless, strategic self-awareness. You can apply this same rigor to your own life. Take out a notebook and dedicate 30 minutes to this exercise. Create 3 columns: wins, losses, and lessons. List the most significant moments from the last 10 years of your life. Then, with the dispassionate eye of a strategist, search for the repeating patterns. What common thread connects your greatest achievements? What recurring habit underpins your most painful setbacks? Do not judge yourself. Do not make excuses. Simply observe. Clarity must precede action. This initial analysis is the foundational survey of your own inner territory. You must know the ground before you can build. For without this honest self-appraisal, any strategy you build will be on a foundation of sand, destined to collapse at the first sign of a storm. 2. Strategic vision development, working backwards from your desired future. In the theater of war, a soldier on the front line sees only the immediate chaos, the enemy directly ahead, the mud, the noise. A general, from a command post, sees the broader map, the movement of troops, the supply lines, the terrain. But a true strategic leader, whether of an army or a life, possesses a different kind of sight. They do not just see the present battlefield, they see the victory parade. They envision the desired end state with such vivid clarity that it becomes a tangible destination, and then, they chart the course backward from that future to the present moment. This is the very soul of strategic thinking. It flips the conventional approach to goal setting on its head. Instead of asking, "What can I do today based on my current resources?" it asks, "What must I do today to arrive at my predetermined future?" At Amazon, this philosophy is a core operational principle known as working backwards. When the team first conceived of Amazon Prime, they did not start with logistical analysis or warehouse capacity. They started by writing a fictional press release for a future they had not yet built. The release announced a revolutionary service: customers could now receive their packages in just 2 days. At the time, this was pure science fiction. They lacked the infrastructure, the partners, and the data to make it a reality. But that press release, that crystal-clear vision of the end state, became their North Star. It provided a powerful filter for every subsequent decision. If a proposed action moved them closer to making that press release a reality, they pursued it with relentless vigor. If it did not, it was discarded. This is the art of backcasting, not attempting to predict the future, but actively designing it. This modern business strategy has ancient roots. The Stoics were masters of this mental discipline. Epictetus distilled this wisdom into a powerful command: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Notice the sequence. The vision comes first. The action follows. You must first define the character you wish to embody, the calm, resilient, virtuous person you aim to become. Only with that image held firmly in your mind can you navigate the temptations of today, the easy comforts, the pleasing distractions, and make the difficult choices required to build that future self. The vision of your future character becomes the anchor against the storms of present impulse. So, let us make this practical for you, right now. Open a new document or take out a fresh sheet of paper. At the top, write today's date, but change the year to 2035. You are now writing a letter to your present self from your future self, 10 years from now. Imagine that in those 10 years, you have achieved the life you most deeply desire. Be specific. Do not write, "I am happy." Write what makes you happy. Describe 3 concrete achievements with vivid detail. Perhaps it's, "I am writing this from the study of my home, which is fully paid for. My latest book, my second, is sitting on the bestseller list. I feel a profound sense of creative fulfillment." Or maybe, "I just returned from a month-long trek in the Himalayas. My body is strong, my mind is clear, and I sleep a full 8 hours every night, free from the anxiety that used to plague me." Or, "I checked my investment portfolio this morning not out of need, but out of curiosity. My passive income now fully covers our family's expenses. I work because I want to, not because I have to. I am financially free." Now, with this vibrant image of your destination in mind, begin the work of the strategist. Trace the path backward. To achieve that 2035 vision, what major milestones must be accomplished by 2030? To hit those 2030 milestones, what key projects must be completed in the next year? And to complete those projects, what single, critical habit must you begin in the next 30 days? You do not need to have every single step mapped out. But you absolutely must know the destination. A vague desire for a better life is a ticket to nowhere. A clear, specific, and emotionally resonant vision is a powerful engine of creation. The clearer the vision, the more decisive the journey. It provides the why that fuels the how. This vision is not a fantasy. It is your strategic intent. It is the architect's blueprint. And with it, you are ready for the next critical step, designing the very environment that will make its construction not just possible, but inevitable. 3. Strategic environment design, the invisible hand on your willpower. Willpower is a finite resource. It is like a muscle that fatigues with overuse. If you rely on sheer force of will to make the right choices every single day, you are setting yourself up for a battle you are destined to lose. The modern world is a relentless assault on your willpower, with its endless notifications, temptations, and engineered distractions. A smarter approach, a more strategic approach, is not to fight harder, but to rig the game in your favor. You must become the conscious designer of your own environment. James Clear, the author of the best-selling book Atomic Habits, illustrates this principle with a simple, life-altering experiment. For years, he wanted to make reading a more consistent part of his life, but found himself defaulting to television after a long day. Instead of trying to force himself to read through brute discipline, he redesigned his living room. He took the batteries out of the TV remote and placed it in a drawer in another room. He then placed a book he was excited to read directly on his pillow. The result was transformative. The friction to watch TV was now high, while the friction to read was virtually non-existent. The right choice became the easiest choice. The habit of reading began to form naturally, without a constant drain on his willpower. This reveals a profound truth about human behavior: we are powerfully shaped by our context. Your environment is the invisible hand that guides your daily choices. It is the track that steers your behavior. You do not need to be a stronger person, you need a smarter setup. This is the core of strategic environment design, the art of consciously shaping your physical and digital spaces to make desired actions effortless and undesired actions difficult. The Stoics, though they lived in a world without smartphones, understood this principle implicitly. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But this self-mastery was not achieved by wrestling with every temptation head-on. A wise Stoic would not attend a bacchanalian feast if they were trying to cultivate temperance. They would not surround themselves with gossips if they were trying to cultivate tranquility. They created conditions that made virtue the path of least resistance. This is true freedom, not freedom from circumstances, but freedom achieved through the intelligent design of them. You do not need more discipline to stop mindlessly scrolling through social media, you need fewer temptations. Move the distracting apps off your phone's home screen and into a folder on the last page. Better yet, set time limits or delete them entirely from your phone and only access them on a desktop computer. You do not need more motivation to exercise in the morning, you need less friction. Lay out your workout clothes and running shoes the night before, placing them right by your bed. When you wake up, the first cue you see is the one that aligns with your goal. These are not trivial tweaks, they are powerful levers. The right cues, placed in the right spots, work silently and consistently in the background, nudging you toward the person you want to become. Your environment becomes a silent coach, reinforcing your best intentions. Let us make this actionable today. Choose one habit you want to build and one habit you want to break. For the desired habit, how can you reduce the friction to start it? If you want to drink more water, place a large, filled water bottle on your desk first thing in the morning. If you want to practice an instrument, leave it out on its stand in the middle of your living room, not packed away in its case. For the undesired habit, how can you increase the friction to start it? If you snack on junk food, don't keep it in the house. If you waste time on video games, unplug the console and store it in a closet after each use. Your environment is the physical manifestation of your life strategy. You can either allow it to be a landscape of random temptations that constantly drain your willpower, or you can intentionally design it as a purposeful space that makes your goals inevitable. Stop blaming your lack of discipline. Start redesigning your world. 4. Resource optimization, planting seeds, not just spending coins. We are conditioned to think of resources in simple, linear terms: the amount of money in our bank account, the number of hours in our day, the list of skills on our resume. We see them as finite quantities to be spent, managed, and conserved. But a strategic thinker, a true life architect, sees them differently. They see resources not as coins to be spent, but as seeds to be planted. A single seed held in your hand may seem insignificant. But if you plant that seed in the right soil, at the right time, and tend to it with care, it can grow into a tree that provides shade, fruit, and more seeds for an entire garden. Your time, your skills, your money, and your relationships are not just things to be used up, they are assets to be invested and multiplied. This shift in perspective, from spending to planting, is the fundamental difference between a life of mere survival and a life of strategic creation. The strategist understands a crucial paradox: while our resources are always limited, our creativity in how we leverage them is limitless. The story of Airbnb's near-death experience in 2008 is a masterclass in this principle. The founders, Brian Chesky, Joe Gebbia, and Nathan Blecherczyk, had maxed out their credit cards and the company was on the brink of failure. They had run out of money. In that moment of desperation, they could have surrendered. Instead, they asked a deeply strategic question: forgetting what we lack, what resources do we still possess? The answer was not money. It was their design skills, their knowledge of printing, and a timely external event, the 2008 US presidential election. They used these existing resources to create and sell two custom-designed cereal boxes, Obama O's and Captain McCain's. It was a clever, humorous, and timely idea. They sold out completely, raising $30,000 that kept their dream alive. But the true return on investment was not the cash. The ingenuity of their serial entrepreneurship caught the attention of Paul Graham, the influential founder of the startup accelerator Y Combinator, who invited them to join his program. That one creative act of resource optimization turned a few boxes of cereal into the seed capital for a multi-billion-dollar global empire. They did not find more money, they found a more creative way to use the skills they already had. This echoes a core teaching of Stoicism: it is not what you lack that holds you back, but what you have and fail to use. Each of us possesses a storehouse of dormant resources, untapped skills we learned years ago, forgotten contacts in our network, unused knowledge from books we've read, even physical items gathering dust that could be sold or repurposed. Strategic thinking does not begin with a frantic search for what is missing. It begins with a calm inventory of what is present. What seeds are currently sitting in your storehouse? Take a moment today to conduct this inventory. Skills: what are you good at, even if you don't use it in your current job? Could you write, design, organize, or teach? Knowledge. What subjects do you know more about than the average person? Network. Who do you know that you haven't spoken to in years? Assets. What physical or digital assets do you own that are currently sitting idle? You don't need to launch a multi-billion-dollar company. You just need to plant one seed. Perhaps that old camera and your dormant photography skills could become a small side business shooting portraits. Perhaps your knowledge of history could be channeled into a blog or a podcast. Perhaps that book you wrote a draft of years ago could be self-published. These are not leftovers from your past. They are the seeds of your future. Do not let your resources lie dormant. Do not let your garden remain barren. The critical question for you today is not what you need to acquire, but what you will choose to plant. 5. Risk and uncertainty management, the art of the asymmetric bet. In a world defined by volatility, uncertainty is not a bug, it is a feature. A life devoid of risk is a life devoid of growth. The reactive mind fears uncertainty and avoids risk at all costs, preferring the stagnant safety of the known. The reckless mind leaps blindly into risk, driven by emotion and hope. But the strategic mind, the Stoic mind, does neither. It confronts uncertainty with clarity and chooses its battles with intelligence. It does not avoid risk, it seeks out a specific kind of risk, the asymmetric bet. An asymmetric risk, or an asymmetric bet, is a situation where the potential downside is limited and known, while the potential upside is vast, even transformative. You play games where the cost of being wrong is small, but the reward for being right could change your life. This is the modern, practical application of the ancient Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. The Stoics mentally rehearsed worst-case scenarios not to cultivate pessimism, but to strip fear of its power and to prepare themselves for adversity. The modern strategist maps out potential failures for the same reason, but adds another layer. They use that analysis to choose the path with the most favorable asymmetry. Consider the pivotal decision made by Netflix in 2007. At the time, they were the undisputed kings of the DVD by mail rental market, a comfortable and profitable business. They could have chosen the path of least resistance, optimizing their existing model. Instead, they chose to disrupt themselves. They made a massive investment in a fledgling technology called streaming, a market that, at the time, was seen as a niche with no clear path to profitability. Let's analyze this as an asymmetric bet. The potential downside: they would lose money on the streaming venture and possibly damage their profitable DVD business. This downside was significant, but it was capped. The company might suffer, but it would likely survive. The potential upside: if streaming became the dominant form of media consumption, they would not just succeed, they would achieve global domination of the entertainment industry. The upside was virtually limitless. Their decision was not a reckless gamble, it was a calculated, strategic choice based on a favorable asymmetry. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of plague and war, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The world will always present you with uncertainty and risk. Your strength lies not in trying to eliminate it, but in maintaining a mind clear enough to navigate it wisely, unswayed by the emotional pull of fear or greed. Your power is in the quality of your choice." So, how can you apply this to your own life? Create a simple decision-making matrix. On the horizontal axis, plot the maximum potential loss. On the vertical axis, plot the maximum potential gain. Now, consider a few strategic options you are facing. Perhaps it's the choice to switch careers, to start a new side project, or to invest in learning a new skill. Option A: quitting your job to start a business. The potential loss is high, loss of stable income. The potential gain is also high, financial freedom. This is a symmetric, high-risk bet. Option B: starting that same business as a side project on weekends. The potential loss is low, some free time, a small amount of capital. The potential gain is still high, proof of concept, potential to scale. This is an asymmetric, low-risk bet. Option C, investing in a 3-month certification for a high-demand skill. The potential loss is low, the cost of the course and some time. The potential gain is high, a significant salary increase, new career opportunities. This is a classic asymmetric bet. By mapping your options this way, the strategic choice often becomes clear. You are not trying to avoid failure. You are simply choosing the battlefield where even a loss is affordable, but a victory is life-changing. Life will always be a dance with uncertainty. But when you learn to choose your risks with the clear-eyed wisdom of a strategist, you stop being a gambler tossed by the whims of fortune and start becoming the architect of your own success. 6. Growth and learning strategies, building a latticework of mental models. In our age of information overload, we are led to believe that the key to intelligence is to consume more, faster. We speed-read articles, listen to podcasts at double speed, and skim through endless feeds, accumulating facts like a squirrel hoarding nuts for the winter. But have you ever felt that despite all this consumption, true wisdom remains elusive? You learn a fact for a test, and it vanishes a week later. The problem is not your memory, the problem is your strategy. You are collecting disconnected dots instead of building a framework to connect them. Strategic learning is not about the quantity of information you absorb, but the quality of the mental structures you build. It is about learning less, but learning deeper. It is about absorbing a core principle once and being able to apply it for a lifetime. The Stoics were not interested in accumulating trivial knowledge, they focused on building a robust mental framework, a set of core principles, that could be used to interpret and navigate any situation life threw at them. A powerful strategy for this kind of deep learning is to focus on acquiring metaskills and building mental models. A mental model is a simplified representation of how something works in the real world. A metaskill is a high-leverage skill that improves your ability to learn other skills. For example, learning to cook one specific recipe is a skill. Learning the fundamental principles of heat, acid, salt, and fat is a metaskill that allows you to cook anything. Charlie Munger, the billionaire business partner of Warren Buffett, credits his success to building a latticework of mental models from various disciplines: physics, biology, psychology, and economics. He doesn't just see a business problem, he sees it through the lens of supply and demand, through the lens of evolutionary biology's survival of the fittest, and through the lens of psychology's cognitive biases. This cross-disciplinary approach allows him to see patterns and connections that specialists, trapped in their own silos, completely miss. You can begin building your own latticework by focusing on learning transferable, foundational concepts. Research shows that learning a musical instrument doesn't just teach you to play music, it enhances cognitive functions like memory, focus, and emotional regulation. Learning the rules of chess can improve logical reasoning and strategic foresight. These are not just hobbies, they are training grounds for the mind, teaching you the metaskill of pattern recognition. You don't need to become an expert in a dozen fields overnight. Choose one powerful mental model and commit to mastering it over the next 90 days. For example, second-order thinking: when faced with a decision, don't just ask, "What is the immediate consequence?" Ask, "And then what? And then what?" This helps you anticipate the cascading effects of your choices. Inversion: as Charlie Munger advises, invert, always invert. Instead of asking how to achieve success, ask what would guarantee failure, and then assiduously avoid it. The Pareto principle, 80-20 rule: in any system, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. Identify the vital 20% of activities in your work and life that generate 80% of your desired results, and focus your energy there. Commit to spending 30 minutes a day not just reading about your chosen model, but actively applying it to problems in your own life. Don't learn to pass a test, learn to see the world differently. When you invest in building these foundational mental structures, you stop chasing fleeting information and start building lasting wisdom. You will no longer feel the anxiety of keeping up with the world, because you will have mastered the timeless art of how to learn. And that is a strategic advantage that no one can take from you. You have now passed the halfway point of this journey. You have laid the groundwork by analyzing your internal landscape, setting a powerful vision, and adopting strategies for managing your environment, your resources, your risks, and your learning. The foundation of your life's architecture is taking shape. I want to commend you for your dedication. Most people live their lives in reaction, never taking the time to think deeply and strategically. Your presence here is a testament to your commitment to a different path. Ahead lie the strategies that will build upon this foundation, the ecosystems of relationships, career, finance, and health. These gears are essential. A brilliant strategy is useless without the energy to execute it or the network to support it. Do not stop now. The most integrated and powerful parts of your life's design are yet to come. 7. Relationship and network strategy, from a Rolodex to a living garden. In the transactional world we inhabit, it is easy to view relationships as a form of currency, a list of contacts to accumulate, a network to be leveraged. But this is a shallow and ultimately ineffective view. A strategic thinker understands that a network is not a static list of names in a phone, it is a dynamic, living ecosystem. It is not a collection of assets to be used, but a garden to be cultivated. A garden requires patience, consistent care, and a genuine desire to see things grow. You cannot rush it. But if you tend to it thoughtfully, it will flourish and, in time, bear fruit in ways you could never have predicted. When you begin to treat your relationships with this gardener's mindset, you shift your focus from, what can I get, to, what can I give, and, how can I create value within this ecosystem? The ancient Stoics placed immense value on human connection, not as a means to an end, but as an expression of our social nature. Yet, they were also keenly aware of the quality of their associations. Epictetus reminded his students that their character is shaped by their companions, emphasizing that actions and shared values, not mere social labels, define the essence of a relationship. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn and a legendary Silicon Valley investor, embodies the modern version of this strategic approach. He famously describes himself as a super connector. His networking strategy is not about hoarding contacts for his own benefit. Instead, he actively and constantly looks for opportunities to connect two people in his network who could benefit from knowing each other. He will see a potential synergy between person A and person B and make a thoughtful introduction. This is not simple altruism, it is a profoundly strategic act. Hoffman understands that by creating value for others within his network, he increases the overall value and dynamism of the entire ecosystem. A well-timed introduction can spark a new company, a game-changing partnership, or a lifelong friendship. This act of giving creates a powerful ripple effect, and that positive energy often boomerangs back in the form of trust, loyalty, and unexpected opportunities. You can begin cultivating your own garden today, no matter the size of your current network. Start with this simple, weekly practice. Identify, each week, choose one person in your network you genuinely respect and want to support. Connect, think deeply about their goals and challenges. Then, look through your own network and ask, who do I know that could help this person? Introduce, craft a thoughtful, concise email introducing the two of them, clearly stating why you think a connection would be mutually beneficial. Your only goal is to plant a seed of potential value. By sending just one such email a week, you transform from a passive contact into an active, value-creating hub. In a year, you will have made over 50 such connections. You will have built a reputation not as someone who takes, but as someone who builds. You will have cultivated a thriving, vibrant garden where opportunities naturally bloom. The reactive person waits for opportunities and looks for helpful contacts. The strategic person builds a living network where value flows freely, knowing that a rising tide lifts all boats, especially their own. 8. Career and work strategy, building your personal moat. There is a pervasive and often damaging piece of advice given to young people today: follow your passion. While well-intentioned, this advice can lead to frustration and aimlessness. Cal Newport, in his seminal book So Good They Can't Ignore You, presents a compelling and more strategic alternative. He argues that for most people, pre-existing passion is not the starting point of a fulfilling career, it is the result of one. Passion, Newport suggests, is a feeling that emerges when you have developed rare and valuable skills. When you become exceptionally good at something the world finds valuable, you gain leverage. You gain autonomy over what you do, how you do it, and who you do it with. You gain a sense of mastery and impact. It is from this position of strength, from this autonomy and mastery, that a deep and abiding passion for your work is born. A strategic thinker, therefore, does not chase the fleeting feeling of passion. They focus on the deliberate construction of a career moat. In medieval times, a moat was a deep, wide ditch filled with water surrounding a castle, making it difficult for enemies to attack. In career terms, your personal moat is an invisible barrier of unique value that protects you from the relentless forces of competition, technological disruption, and economic uncertainty. This moat is not built from a single material. It is not just your college degree or your job title. It is a powerful combination of three things: rare and valuable skills, competencies that are in high demand but in short supply. A trusted network, deep relationships with people who respect your work and character. Personal credibility, a reputation for reliability, integrity, and excellence. If you are good at one thing, you can be a freelancer, easily replaced by someone cheaper. But if you combine a rare skill set with a strong network and an unimpeachable reputation, you become indispensable. You become so good they can't ignore you. To begin building your moat, you must first step back from the daily whirlwind of tasks and emails. You must ask a strategic question: in my chosen field, what is the $1,000 per hour skill? What single competency, if I were to master it over the next 12 months, would place me in the top 1% of my industry? Once you have identified that skill, you must pursue it with the focus and discipline of a craftsman. Treat its development as your most important project. Log your practice hours. Seek out feedback from the best in the field. Measure your progress not by time spent, but by quality produced. This is not a race against your colleagues. It is a commitment you make to yourself to stop drifting and start building. Every single day, you must lay one more brick in the wall of your moat, no matter how small. The Stoics did not shun success or ambition. They only rejected a blind pursuit of them, a chase for fame or fortune that caused one to lose their virtue and inner tranquility. By focusing on building real, defensible value, you are not just building a career. You are building a foundation for a life of freedom, purpose, and impact. And once you have built that moat, once you have achieved a degree of professional security and control over your time, a new and empowering question will emerge: what will you do with the financial freedom you have created? This leads us directly to the next ecosystem, your financial strategy, where money becomes not a source of anxiety, but a tool for liberation. 9. Financial strategy integration, your personal value generating machine. For many, the topic of money is fraught with anxiety, comparison, and a sense of scarcity. We view it as a score to be kept, a race to be won. How much do I have? How much do they have? Am I falling behind? This reactive mindset traps us in a cycle of earning and spending, forever feeling like we are one emergency away from disaster. The Stoic and strategic approach to finance is fundamentally different. Money is not the goal, it is a tool. It is not a score, it is a system. A well-designed personal financial system is not a leaky bucket that you must constantly struggle to fill. It is a self-sustaining, value-generating machine that works for you, freeing up your most precious resource, your time and attention to focus on what truly matters. There is no better modern embodiment of this mindset than Warren Buffett. Buffett did not become one of the wealthiest people in history by chasing hot stocks or frantically trading the market. He achieved it through the patient, disciplined construction of a financial engine. At the heart of his company, Berkshire Hathaway, is a portfolio of high-quality businesses and a massive insurance operation. The float from the insurance premiums, money that is collected up front but paid out later, provides a vast, stable pool of capital that he can invest for the long term. It is a system designed to create a powerful snowball effect, where money generates more money at an accelerating rate. While you may not be running a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, you can apply the same systemic thinking to your own finances, starting today. Before you can build, however, you must have a clear blueprint. You must map your own personal cash flow. Take a piece of paper and draw 2 columns. Inflows, every source of income that comes in each month. Outflows, every expense that goes out. Be brutally honest and specific. Now, analyze this map. Where is your money going? How much of it is being actively invested in assets that can grow? How much is sitting stagnant in a low-interest savings account, slowly losing its value to inflation? And most critically, how much is silently leaking away in subscriptions you don't use, impulse purchases, and other unexamined habits? Once you have this clarity, you can ask the strategic question: what would happen over the next 3 years if I were to consciously redirect just 15% of my income away from consumption and leaks, and into my own personal value-generating machine? This machine does not have to be the stock market, especially if you do not understand it. Your machine could be investing in yourself, using that money to acquire high-income skills that increase your earning potential. Building reusable assets, creating a digital product, writing a book, or starting a scalable side business. Long-term, passive investing, contributing to low-cost, diversified index funds. A Stoic does not try to time the market or predict the next economic boom. They focus on what they can control: their savings rate, their spending habits, their skills, and the design of their own financial system. They build a ship that is sturdy enough to weather any economic storm, knowing that their security comes from their system, not from the unpredictable winds of the market. If the subject of money has been a source of stress in your life, it is time to reframe it. It is not a monster to be feared, but a flow of energy to be directed. It is a system to be designed. If you have let your financial resources lie dormant, today is the day to awaken them. 10. Health and energy strategy, the queen on the chessboard. In the grand game of life strategy, if your vision is the king, the ultimate objective you seek to protect and advance, then your energy is the queen. It is the most powerful and versatile piece on the board. With it, you can attack, defend, and move in any direction. Without it, even the most brilliant strategy is nothing more than a useless plan drawn on a map, as your king is left exposed and vulnerable. You can have the most audacious goals, the most detailed plans, and the most inspired vision. But if you are physically and mentally exhausted, if your battery is perpetually in the red, your strategy will remain a fantasy. The burned-out mind cannot think strategically. An exhausted mind loses the ability to distinguish between the truly important and the merely urgent. It defaults to survival mode, putting out the nearest fire, and the grand architecture of your life is forgotten. No one can play the long game if they are struggling to survive the day. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus declared, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This self-mastery is not confined to our response to insults or our management of fear. It extends to the fundamental, biological realities of our existence. It is about mastering the wisdom to know when to push, but also when to rest, when to recharge, and when to stop. Arianna Huffington, the founder of the Huffington Post, learned this lesson in the most brutal way possible. In 2007, at the peak of her company's growth, she collapsed from sheer sleep deprivation and exhaustion. She hit her head on her desk, broke her cheekbone, and woke up in a pool of her own blood. That traumatic event became a pivotal turning point. It was not a sign of failure, but a wake-up call. It led her to found a new company, Thrive Global, and to become a global advocate for what she called the sleep revolution. She now teaches a new generation of leaders that sustainable success is not born from burnout. It is not about shining brightly for a few frantic years before collapsing. It is built on the daily, non-negotiable practice of recharging. Your body and mind are not machines to be run into the ground. They are a biological system that requires intelligent management. When you neglect your sleep, your nutrition, and your physical health, you are not just harming your body, you are sabotaging your own strategic capacity. Energy is not the final goal of your strategy, it is the essential vehicle that allows you to execute it. To shift from energy spending to energy managing, start with a simple, daily audit. Call it your daily battery check. Before you start your workday, ask yourself 3 questions. Sleep: did I get at least 7 hours of quality sleep last night? Nutrition: have I fueled my body with real food and adequate hydration? Mind: did I take a few moments for stillness, meditation, or a short walk to clear my head? If the answer to any of these is a clear no, that is a strategic red flag. On that day, you should be wary of making major decisions. A depleted mind is a reactive mind. Use that day for execution of existing plans, not for the creation of new ones. Observe more, steer less. The design of a magnificent life does not begin with a 10-year plan. It begins with the fundamental strategy of having enough energy to think clearly today. Protect your queen, for without her, the game is already lost. 11. Time and focus strategy, the power of the deep work block. Bill Gates, one of the most productive and impactful minds of our time, has a long-standing habit that is crucial to his strategic success: the think week. Twice a year, he retreats to a secluded cabin in the woods for 7 days. During this time, there are no meetings, no phone calls, and no emails. It is just him, a stack of books, and dozens of dense technical papers and reports from across Microsoft and the wider industry. It is in this self-imposed isolation, in this state of deep, uninterrupted focus, that some of the most pivotal strategic shifts in Microsoft's history were born, from the initial push into the Internet with Internet Explorer to the massive, company-wide pivot to a cloud-first strategy with Azure. This practice reveals a vital strategic principle: the most valuable currency in the 21st century is not time, but focused attention. In a world engineered for distraction, with a constant barrage of notifications, pings, and messages, it is tragically easy to have a calendar packed with activity but a mind devoid of depth. We live in a state of perpetual busyness, but we rarely engage in the kind of deep work that produces real breakthroughs. And if our days are merely a diluted, distracted repetition of yesterday, even a lifetime of hours will amount to very little. The Stoics understood this profoundly. Marcus Aurelius commanded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. In our context, the outside events are the endless digital distractions vying for our attention. Our strength, our power, lies in our ability to consciously choose where we direct our focus and, just as importantly, what we choose to ruthlessly ignore. Every decision about your attention is a strategic investment. Are you planting your focus in the fertile ground of a difficult, important project, or are you scattering it to the wind of reactive, low-value tasks? Chris Bailey, author of The Productivity Project, dead. I cat a full year to experimenting with his own productivity. His single most powerful discovery was the non-negotiable importance of protecting a block of deep work time each morning. For him, this meant 3 hours, from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., with zero distractions, no phone, no email, no social media. This is when he tackles his most cognitively demanding work. Equally important is his evening shutdown ritual. He lists the 3 most important tasks for the following day and then mentally disengages completely. He understands that the brain requires periods of unstructured emptiness to recharge and consolidate information. Depth is born from the rhythm of intense focus and true rest. The strategy, then, is not about hypermanaging every minute of your day. It is about creating and fiercely protecting sacred blocks of time for deep, concentrated thought. When you master your attention, you are no longer simply managing tasks, you are creating value. This is where you move from being busy to being effective. This is how you produce work that is not just done, but exceptional. 12. Creativity and innovation strategy, the systematic pursuit of breakthroughs. There is a romantic and deeply misleading myth about creativity, that it is a mystical gift, a flash of divine inspiration that strikes a few chosen geniuses at random. We imagine Archimedes in his bath or Newton under the apple tree. But the strategic view, and indeed the Stoic view, sees creativity not as magic, but as a process. It is not something you wait for, it is something you build. It is not accidental, it is systemic. True innovation rarely springs from a completely new idea. It is almost always the result of cross-pollination, the connecting of existing ideas, disciplines, and perspectives in a novel way. The strategist does not try to invent something from nothing, they learn how to see the hidden connections between things that already exist. When you apply this systems thinking approach to the creative process, you stop being a passive vessel waiting for inspiration and start becoming the active builder of a creative engine. Consider the story of James Dyson. He did not invent the vacuum cleaner. But he was frustrated by the way conventional vacuums lost suction as their bags filled with dust. His inspiration came from a completely different industry. He observed a large industrial cyclone tower at a local sawmill that used centrifugal force to separate sawdust from the air. He asked a simple, cross-disciplinary question: could that principle work on a miniature scale in a vacuum cleaner? The answer was yes, but it took him 15 years and 5,127 failed prototypes to perfect it. His breakthrough was not the result of a single, aha, moment, but of a deliberate, systematic, and incredibly persistent process of iterative experimentation. This embodies the Stoic principle articulated by Marcus Aurelius: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. For Dyson, each of his 5,126 failures was not a roadblock, it was a data point. It was a lesson. Each failed prototype was not a step backward, but a step upward on the ladder of understanding. When documented and reflected upon, every failure becomes a crucial part of the path to success. There are no shortcuts to genuine breakthroughs, only intelligently designed feedback loops. If you are working on a creative or innovative project, adopt this systematic approach. Set rapid iteration cycles, give yourself a short, fixed timeline for each version of your prototype, whether it's a piece of software, a chapter of a book, or a business plan. The goal is not perfection, it's learning. Keep a learning log. After each cycle, document what worked, what didn't, and what you will change in the next iteration. The true value is not in the final product of any single cycle, but in the patterns that emerge from the feedback over time. Creative strategy is not about having better intuition, it is about designing better experiments. It is about having the discipline to test, fail, learn, and repeat, knowing that what stands in the way is, in fact, the way forward. And as you master this process, you will be prepared for the final, and most crucial, ecosystem: the art of making wise decisions. 13. Decision-making enhancement, the power of principles and checklists. Your life is not defined by a handful of grand, dramatic choices made on a mountaintop. It is forged in the crucible of hundreds of small, seemingly insignificant decisions you make every single day. What you choose to focus on in the first hour of your morning, how you choose to respond to a frustrating email, whether you choose to exercise or to scroll, each of these is an opening move in a long and complex game. This is the principle of decision stacking. No decision exists in a vacuum. Each one is a link in a chain reaction, either clearing the path to your desired future or erecting another obstacle in your way. The person who understands this does not make decisions hastily just to get them over with. They think like a strategic architect, asking not just, is this the right choice for this moment, but the more important question, where does this choice ultimately lead? Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, did not build his empire on gut instinct alone. He recognized the fallibility of human emotion and cognitive bias in high-stakes decision-making. So, he built a system. He codified his decision-making process into a set of clear, repeatable principles. He then worked with engineers to translate these principles into algorithms that could analyze data and model outcomes, creating a powerful partnership between human judgment and computational logic. His goal was not to replace his intuition, but to protect it from its own inherent volatility. The Stoic embraces obstacles not as unfortunate roadblocks, but as opportunities to practice virtue and strengthen their reason. A difficult decision is not a cause for anxiety, it is an invitation to upgrade your mental operating system. Instead of reacting emotionally, you can design a set of principles or a simple checklist to guide you through the noise with clarity. You can start building your own decision-making system today. For any choice that will cost a significant amount of your time, e.g., more than 1 hour, or your money, e.g., over $100, pause and run it through a simple 5-question checklist. Alignment: does this choice move me closer to the strategic vision I have for my life? Risk, reward: what is the absolute worst-case scenario if I'm wrong, and what is the best possible upside if I'm right? Is the potential gain worth the potential loss? Data: what objective evidence or past experience supports this choice? Am I relying on facts or just feelings? Second-order consequences: if I make this choice, what is likely to happen next? And after that? Intuition: after analyzing everything logically, what does my deepest, quietest intuition say? You cannot control every outcome. But you can absolutely control and improve the process by which you make your decisions. And over a lifetime, it is the quality of your decision-making process that will ultimately shape the quality of your future. Strategic thinking is not about being right every time, it is about consistently making choices based on a framework of logic and principle that you can trust and refine over time. Conclusion: you are the architect. We have now journeyed through the 13 strategic ecosystems that form the blueprint for a deliberately designed life. From the foundational act of honest self-analysis to the daily practice of principled decision-making, each of these gears is interconnected, creating a powerful system that shifts you from a life of reaction to a life of creation. Remember, a strategy is not a rigid plan set in stone. It is a living framework, a compass that allows you to navigate the inevitable uncertainties of life with purpose and clarity. Every time you choose to analyze, to envision, to design your environment, to optimize your resources, and to make a conscious choice, you are engaging in a profound act. You are designing your own future instead of being passively shaped by it. In the grand and magnificent project of your one life, you are not merely a resident. You are not just a player. You are the architect. Now, the blueprint is in your hands. The real work begins with the first stone you choose to lay. Which of these 13 strategies resonates most deeply with you right now? Which is the area of your life that calls for the most urgent and intentional design? Share your first step in the comments below. Let us know where you are on this journey. Your declaration is a commitment to yourself, and your story may inspire another architect to begin their own work. If you have found this guide to be a valuable tool, like this video to signal its worth and help it reach others who are ready to stop reacting and start designing. And to ensure you have continued access to these timeless strategies for building a life of resilience and purpose, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. There is always more to learn, more to build. Thank you for dedicating your time and attention to this important work. The game of life is just beginning. Go forth, and build well.